Wonderful. Well, we're live. I'm here with Vincent Birrittella, probably better known as Vinny, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see Vinny. No, do people call you Vincent or Vinny, really?
Both. My people, like my family members, call me Vincent, and my friends call me Vinny. I feel
Yeah.
like Vinny is more like hip, and like Vincent sounds like it's like your grandma calling you.
Yeah, but somehow I'm more drawn to Vincent for some reason. But I'll call you Vinny. I'll call you Vinny. Um, anyway, the reason I'm interviewing you is that you had this wonderful article, and I love it when I get articles like this on Liberty.me because um, there's a lot going on in the world, and those of us with libertarian bent want to write on everything. You see an article, it's like, I should write an article about it. I should write about it. So I felt like when this Oregon situation came along, that I wanted to write an article about it, and then I saw your piece, and I thought, well, now I don't have to. It's already been done. So, um, and you commented on I think one of the most extraordinary aspects of the case, which is going to continue to be important going forward as we encounter every more of these cases, which we undoubtedly will, which was how a case of a dispute over property rights and really fundamental freedoms became a kind of controversy about demographics.
hmm
That at some level, people were pointing out that, look, if these white ranchers had been city blacks, in Baltimore or something, that they would have been shouted down as animals and terrorists and hounded by the cops, or if they had been Sharia law adhering Muslims, then they would have the government would have gone after them. Whereas, as it was, the police backed down, and there's a great deal of public sympathy
hmm
for them. But then some people on the left were decrying them as terrorists and actually advocating that they be, firebombed and arrested and squashed. And there's something about this situation that tripped your trigger.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, when I first heard about what was going on, I thought to myself, like don't have like any like any like any opinions on it yet, or anything like that. Like just wait for the details to keep unraveling pretty much. And so literally when I first like heard about it, I just saw the draconian reactions from like mostly the left, and like it just really frightened me, to be honest. I mean, like the like details were like still coming out, and like people were like actually calling to like kill these people without even knowing what was going on. It's just like like why like are like people like calling for like this like amount of like violence when they don't even know like like the full story, so it really I don't know, like it really frightened me, and it really showed me that like people are like like so used to like calling for the government to use violence on people, and like it just shows like like the like roots of like like government, like government kind of like I guess you could say like brainwashing a bit. Like people are like like they're kind of like like taught to think that like like using the government on like they're like certain like scapegoats is okay, and like like no matter what like anything that the government uses if it's on their a particular scapegoat, it's totally fine, and that's not right at all, to me.
Right. I mean, you've got a situation here where you've got a kind of politics of vengeance, essentially, right? So
Yeah.
you've got some groups that have been aggrieved by government for protesting policy, and probably, well, for the most part, correctly. I mean, correctly protesting with some justice,
Okay.
and then treated brutally by the police. Are convinced that there was a racial motivation, which there might have been,
Mhm.
and then instead of advocating freedom for others, they just turn around and are tweeting out, very dangerous suggestions that that the ranchers be firebombed and arrested and
Mhm.
treated just as brutally as the people they have been defending only a few months earlier.
Yeah, yeah, it is a huge double standard. I mean, like like a couple of months ago, liberals were like they were like crying about, well, like not like crying, like like they were actually like like rightfully pointing out like like the bad things that were happening to Tamir Rice and people of color, and like they're totally right about the police abuse on people of color, but when police abuse happens to like white people or people that they don't really care about, it's totally fine. And like I did see some people use like like arguments like, oh well, like like cops like do like like X, Y, and Z to black people. Why can't they do it to white people? It's like
Right.
like
Let's give white people a taste of their own medicine.
yeah, no, like it's like horrible. I mean, like like nobody should be treated like that. Like it doesn't matter how rich you are, or what color of skin you are, or what kind of religion. Nobody deserves to be brutalized by the police or the law enforcement. That's how I am look at it.
Well, it seems to me that you really do have this as a kind of persistent aspect of policy of using the state. One group uses the state against another group, and
Mhm.
then the aggrieved group comes after a different group, advocating policy be used against them, and then all it does is lead to just ever escalating violence with no real solutions being nothing being solved.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I'm just sticking to myself, if like, like the government were to like drone strike people, like imagine what like they would do to like, like even like, like more serious threats, like, like more serious threats, like when I first heard about the Oregon situation, the first thing that came up to me when I like heard about those like militants, like occupying, the that building there, I seriously thought about a tailgate of like basically like like I'm a drunk uncles at a giant game or something. Like I didn't think of like like terrorists or like people to be like like afraid of. I'm thinking these people want to freaking drone strike like your like uncle and stuff. I mean, come on, like these people like are harmless. And then like you like have like people saying like, oh, they're like Al Qaeda and like vanilla ISIS. It's like, are these people really terrorists then if you're calling them vanilla ISIS and stuff like that? I mean, they're like laughable. They're like
I didn't. That's the first I've heard that one before. Vanilla ISIS.
yeah, I mean, like it's just like like how can these people like be like like terrorists when like like you're like referring them to like like basically like like catchphrases and like like funny caricatures of people. It's just like it doesn't really add up to me. Like if like these people are terrorists, then like it's like they aren't vanilla ISIS and they're like like psychotic crazy people, and these people have not done anything wrong. Like no violence has been committed. I mean, no, like like literally these people are calling for snacks. I mean, they're calling for snacks. Like these people are like nothing to be scared of, and like like it's one thing to like like be like against these people, which I totally like understand and stuff like that, but it's another thing to like call for like drone strikes and call for the government to give whatever it got on these people. Like I just think it's just horrendous how people
And the motivation here is entirely sort of a revenge killings is what they're essentially advocating because it's rather obvious, I think, and well substantiated that the power of the state is disproportionately used against powerless people relative to powerful people, and in the United States that tends to follow along racial lines, as we well know. But the problem is for people who believe so seriously in the power of the state, freedom for everyone and rights for everyone doesn't seem to be one of the options, and that creates a very dangerous situation.
Oh, I totally agree. And when like now like everybody has rights, then nobody really has rights. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like how it is. Like that's like the whole entire thing about equality. Like everybody is equal, including the bigoted prick that we don't like at all. Like we can like like talk like like about like like how like, people have rights and stuff like that, but if like not like everybody has rights, then nobody really has rights. It's like like we are supposed to be equal as people, but yet once like like some like characteristic gets involved that like like somebody doesn't like or anything, then equality and rights for everybody goes right out the window.
Yeah. Now, where do you actually live in the country? Are you in that region of the world, or how did you feel it so intense?
No, I'm actually in Tarrytown, New York. You know where that is?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now, how much do you know about the land disputes in the West? I mean, they seem to be, I guess, this so-called sagebrush rebellion dates back to the 1980s, and then in the 1990s things got worse when Clinton nationalized vast amounts of then state-owned lands, and now you've got an entire class of seriously aggrieved people. I mean, every time I've been out in that world, like 100% of everybody you encounter is super duper upset about the federal government's management of these lands.
Yeah, I've read somewhere or like I've seen like graphs of like like for example like in Nevada, like literally I think like 90% of the state is owned by the federal government. 90%. So like I mean like like you are I'm absolutely right about like the government like owning like vast amounts of land and stuff like that. And like I've been reading like like a bit into it and and more particularly the area where the Oregon dispute is, and well, I was reading that in 1872 that a stretch of land it's called the Mohier. I hope I'm saying it right. The Mohier wildlife preserve, like like that a stretch of land that the ranchers are at right now. That was actually given to the northern. I hope I'm saying this right. Paiute. It's a Native American tribe, and ever since like the 1870s, like they're like basically they're like ownership of like land has been like basically like like getting lease and lease like bigger, like it's like getting more smaller, it's getting more occupied by the government and like other stuff like that. So if we were to look at, I guess from a Lockean standpoint, like the land shouldn't even be going to Oregon. Like it should be actually be going to the Native American tribes that actually had that land back in like the 1870s.
Right.
Because they had their land literally like stripped from them and violently taken from them, and there was a whole entire like like war about it too, like between the government and the Hammonds. Well, no. What are they called again? I know it is the Paiute, but there was like another group of people too that they were fighting with also. But that's what I kind of know about it. Like I did like some research, not like a whole like like lot, but I do know that I'm a part of the land that the ranchers are occupying right now was once former owned by the Native Americans that were once there before. But
sure.
But especially out in the West, the government does own like like a lot of land and like and I actually read this article like last week about these desert towns that were really like affected by the government's testing of nuclear weapons. Like I think it was in I think maybe like Nevada or maybe New Mexico. There's like this like one village that's basically like obliterated and like like toxic, and like there's like like a lot of people who were from that area. They now have cancers and stuff like that because of all the toxic chemicals that the from the nuclear bomb, and the wind from the west has pushed all of those chemicals like towards like where like people are like like occupying land and living their lives, and now they're getting sick from all the chemicals because of like all the radiation that was used and stuff like that.
I mean, there's victims all around, and then you've got ranchers who have been there had land for 100 years who are being seriously, restricted in their use rights based on environmental agitation. I mean, most of the federal lands are nowadays run entirely with, some sort of sense of environmental priorities rather than rancher knowledge, and they've disturbed the population, the wildlife population, and done all sorts of horrible things. And it seems like everybody in this area of the world has some kind of complaint. And I can't even imagine what it's going to take to unravel this in the future. I gather that James Watt, as Secretary of the Interior in the 1980s, tried to sort of take steps in the right direction.
Yeah.
But didn't make any progress whatsoever, and that everything is, much worse now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did read about that. I think it was posted in Fee the other day.
Yeah.
An article in Fee, how Ronald Reagan tried to privatize some of the land holdings, but it was protested by environmentalists and other people who were against it, and it never got underway. And yeah, I've read about that. And
well, it does seem to be a breeding ground for just a very intense sort of radicalism, and this movement that we saw in Oregon the other day, it does seem to be what might be the beginnings of a much larger conflict coming down the line. And it's very interesting to consider the ways in which there are parallels between what's going on in the far west and what you see in cities in the Northeast, where large groups of population have been subjected to all kinds of regulations dating back again 100 years on where they could live, what they could do, the kind of economic regulations they face, being forced into public housing, and just generally facing legal discrimination of all sorts.
Oh yeah.
And so you've got victim. Basically what we have in this country is a vast victimized population, from all groups in all directions.
Yeah, I mean, the government is totally involved in social engineering. Literally, the government, government since day one has had its hands in trying to I guess change the way people act, and influence people's actions and stuff like that. Even in the beginning when the country first commenced, I think that George Washington put a whiskey tax on alcohol and stuff like that, and that was to make people stop drinking, because when the revolution was over, people were drinking and partying and stuff like that, and the founding fathers didn't like that, so they imposed the tax on it. And I mean, speaking of housing, I mean, have you ever heard of a thing called redlining?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, that was a huge government policy back in the 30s and 40s that the federal government imposed on housing and stuff like that. Basically, it was kind of made to segregate everybody, instead of having people decide for themselves where they want to live. They decide to put in laws in place to kind of separate people, and
it's egregious, and so many of the economic regulations of the cities had their origin in racially segregationist laws. For example, the right to open up a nightclub came to be subjected to regulators, mainly for racial reasons, because some people didn't want mixed population dance clubs in the community. And that's just part of our history, not to mention eugenics policies and much worse that came long after slavery ended. So the number of government policies, like I say, everybody's a victim of government these days, and that's why your article is so powerful, because you said something like identity politics must die, which I love the title, because it really just draws attention to the fact that to demonize this or that group based on race, or for that matter religion, is to really miss the key thing, which is that we all have a kind of common enemy and a power elite that's trying to divide us rather than permit us freedom and choice.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely true. I mean, just like you said, the government pretty much screws over everybody. I mean, it doesn't really matter how much money you have in your bank account, or like how tall you are, or like how old, or like like what color your skin is. I mean, that's just like the nature of the state. It's just to expropriate and spread its power around and try to gain as much power as possible.
Yep, and all these cheers on on the part of people to crack down on the Oregon protesters. They should have felt a sense of solidarity with him and said, "Well, this is no different from the people who are protesting abuse by the police and in many places around the country." There should have been a common connection there, rather than furthering the cause of division and disunity with this advocacy of violence and terror.
Yeah, and interestingly, liberals are very, very, against mandatory minimums, and this case is actually a great example of how, like mandatory minimums are disgusting and like actually cause so much harm. Like the whole entire thing with the Hammonds, the reason why they're like in prison is because of mandatory minimums. They were charged under the I think it was, I hope I'm getting it right, like the Anti-Terrorism and Death Penalty Act of 1995 or something like that. Right. It was it was enacted after the bombings in the World Trade Center in 1993 and the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995, and that law actually limits some habeas corpus. I think I'm saying it right, hopefully.
Yeah, habeas corpus. Mm-hmm.
Yep, it limits those rights too on it. So yeah, in that law and required mandatory minimums on perpetrators of some laws. And what happened with the Hammonds was in the I think it was, basically under there were two fires that they started, but these fires are kind of like maintenance for the the land and stuff like that.
Clearing out the brush, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the first fire I think was in 2001. And that was like unintentional. It was all accident, and the Hammonds put out the fire themselves. The second time, it was also intentional, and I think the government firefighters ended up putting that one out. But even thinking of that, the Hammonds really didn't violate anything. I mean, they're literally maintaining their land. It's locking up somebody for mowing their lawn,
Yeah, exactly. Right. The fact that the land was leased to them is neither here nor there. I mean, they didn't ask. They would rather have been private owners, I'm sure, or
yeah. Oh yeah.
But to conduct basic maintenance and preserving the value of your property is just part of what you do. So the prison sentences were outrageous. And I understand the anger that it gave rise to. It makes perfect sense, especially if if people who are writing about this and commenting about it who haven't negatively on the protests and the occupation here, who haven't been there and talked to the people. They really owe it to themselves to take a vacation out there and go on a dude ranch or something and find out what people really think about federal ownership of these lands. It's really intense.
Oh yeah, kind of like I mentioned before. I mean, with the nuclear testing. I mean, we know what the government is going to do, to its land. It's going to just like what it did with the land with the testing of nuclear weapons. It's basically not going to care about people around it, and they're going to it's the a tragedy of the commons pretty much. The government doesn't really have in there's no internalization of effects, and
yeah, absolutely. And yet these guys are treated like disgusting criminals. So I must say that there has been restraint being used by the police, which is awesome, and that's what angered the left so much.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I know. Thankfully, the the authorities have been, kind of like, lenient, and like President Obama hasn't been like, like as like, like rough on them and stuff like that, which is
Right.
a very good thing, And I don't think the government wants another Waco or like another like Ruby Ridge on them,
The
So
media certainly does. I mean,
I know.
the amount of hysteria that greeted this thing, it dominated the headlines for 2 days. Hoping for more action, essentially.
I know, and like the whole entire thing would be different if like the characteristics of the people were different. Like it would be like the exact opposite. So like if the occupiers were like Muslims or the people of color, or like Native Americans, liberals, and people on the left wouldn't like they wouldn't be calling for drone strikes. They would be calling for like support. There'll be articles everywhere about like how these people are good, right, and stuff like that. And then from the right, you'll be like, oh, these goddamn beep, like basically like like, oh, like like we gotta get them, like throw them in cages. But like it's not like these people aren't Native Americans. They're a white man. So conservatives like white men, and Democrats don't. So it's like, oh, okay, so now we gotta hate these people. So it's just like people just like forget about humanity once like certain characteristics are there.
Yeah, it's just absolutely wicked stuff. I think you put it very, very well. Well, I appreciate very much that you wrote the article. The name of the article is Identity Politics Must Die, and the site is Libertella91 at Liberty.me. I'm really glad I have Liberty.me, because it allows opinions like yours to get out there, whereas otherwise you wouldn't have been able to reach an audience on Blogger or some other place. So I think it's just wonderful. I really appreciate your writing. I'm glad you remember the community.
Thank you so much for the site. I love it so much, and I love writing for it. And it's definitely like giving me a option of I guess saying my opinion, and like writing stuff, and like I actually have a pretty interesting article coming out. It's a surprise, and I think you're probably gonna like it. I think a lot of people are gonna like it. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of like a mind exercise, I guess, But I have like another article coming out like in a couple of days probably. I still got to edit and write some more stuff in it, But
you've obviously got a lot of talent, and you've got a good mind, and your prose is just outstanding. So thank you for all your contributions, and thank you for talking to me tonight.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. I am honored to be interviewed by you.
Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.
Bye.